Okay, it's 3 o'clock. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Pete if he could lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, first off, we'd like to welcome our new board member, Miss Liz Allward, sitting down here at the end. She's got a lot of board experience, so that's going to be a good thing. All right. This is the Planning and Zoning Board. It's an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners who will make the final decisions on these items. The items on today's agenda will be heard by the county commission on November 4th. When a motion ends in any kind of split vote, a roll call vote may be taken to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn their microphone on so that your voice is on the record. At this time, if any board member has had any ex parte communication regarding any application, please disclose so now. All right, we need a motion for the approval of the P&Z minutes from September 20th, 2021.
Full motion.
I'll second.
A motion from Bruce, a second by Pete. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously. All right, sir, item H1.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that Mr. Bassford can vote during these proceedings. Thank you.
Okay.
Item H1, Rodney F. McConkey requests a change of zoning classification from GU to AU per zoning action 21Z00023 on tax account numbers 231274, 2312741, 2312742, and 2312743, totaling 8.36 acres.
Okay, is the applicant here? If you could, sir, could you please come up to the podium here and get as close to that microphone as you can. State your name and address for the record. And then a little bit about what you're wanting to do.
Okay, my name's Rodney McConkey. Address is 2000 Cheney Highway, number 103. That's Titusville, 32780. We're looking to use the property to do some farming, as well as get some animals out there. We have a neighbor of ours who is a rancher who wants to put some cows out in 3 acres of the pasture out there, and then we planned on having a few horses and that kind of thing. Okay. And we were looking at farming on maybe 2 acres of it, and either doing a roadside stand, or I know there's a co-op in Titusville that we got in contact with who, you know, you do fruits and vegetables and that kind of thing.
Okay. Hearing that, I bring it back to the board. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
For the applicant, do you have any plans for growing commercial crops, packaging, processing, the high-intensity agricultural uses that you would be
No,
able?
not at all, no.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Liz, welcome to the board again.
Okay. Part of the agricultural zoning classification includes agritourism.
Uh-huh.
Are you planning on any kind of agritourism, i.e. barn weddings or inviting?
You know, we hadn't thought about that. That would be kind of my wife's niche, that kind of thing. But initially, no, we hadn't considered doing something like that. We just wanted to basically have a place where, you know, we could go, the kids could help with the farming and growing and that kind of stuff, and then have animals out there for them and that type of thing. So hadn't thought about that, honestly, but that might be something in the future, because I know she would, I mean, my daughter she had a barn wedding, so Possibly, but no, that's not in the cards right now, no.
So would you be willing to consider a stipulation that doesn't include the agritourism at this time, if we were to
I mean, if
consider approving the
necessary,
AU?
sure. I don't see why it would be an issue one way or the other, but I mean,
But at some point down the line, if you considered doing agritourism, you can
Right.
always come back and,
oh, yeah, I have no problem with that, absolutely. Sure.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to pass item H1, also with the stipulation that ag tourism not be allowed.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Pete. Do y'all have that? A second by Liz. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
I oppose. I don't think, I mean, that whole strip is zoned AU. I don't really see a need to restrict him over and above his neighbors, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, that motion passed with one nay, Bruce Moyer. Okay, item H2.
Mr. Chair, just give us a quick second. We're changing staff.
Okay,
And am I,
you're done, sir. It
All right.
passed.
all right, thank you so much.
It's
have a good
going to the
afternoon.
county commissioners meeting for November 4th. Well, if you could get
Just
with,
give them to me, I'll pass them down for you.
Yeah, we need a copy.
Are you ready for me to read it into the record?
yes, sir, please. If you could hold on one second.
Item H2 is Julia A. and James W. Garrison. They're requesting a change of zoning classification from AU to RU-1-11. The zoning action number is 21Z00024, and it's one tax account number 2419400 in District 2.
Okay, and I assume you're the applicant? If you could state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is John Campbell. I'm a licensed land surveyor. My business is in central Brevard County. Mr. Garrison couldn't be here, and Mrs. Garrison could, and he asked me, since I had done the surveys on it and knew a little bit about the technical end of it, to help Mrs. Garrison with her testimony. I do have an autographed or executed authorization to speak. This
Okay.
is Julia Garrison here. She's going to touch.
Okay.
A
If you could
residential,
get closer to the mic.
two-bedroom residential home dwelling.
Okay, and
yeah.
that's it?
Yeah. But to do so, it's classified as agricultural, and I would like it to change over to residential, so that way the structure can be built.
Because it doesn't meet the lot size? Is that-
Exactly.
Okay.
It's 10,000 square feet.
Mr. Chairman, if I could tell you that the property that Mr. and Mrs. Garrison owned was created, I believe, in 1965, when there wasn't as much officiality in the county as it was, but people just split up properties. It was zoned AU. The surrounding properties, what I'd like to let you look at is in the one exhibit there from the property appraiser's office. You can see that there's 5 other pieces of property. There you go. That are of the same size and same general disposition as Mrs. Garrison's.
Yeah.
In additional to that, Mrs. Garrison and I went out to her site, and we took pictures of homes that are in the surrounding area. You got them upside down.
There we go. So
I,
they get-
I think you can see by compatibility that, that the homes are single-story ranch bungalows that are a major portion of Merritt Island. Mrs. Garrison also had a designer check her house. And this is a plan view, the front view of the house, along with a floor plan. And I think you can again see that it's very adaptable to the immediate community. In the course of doing this work for her, I, as a surveyor, prepared a plot plan seeing how the house would fit on the property, what the views would be, and what our ultimate plan looked like. And this is my survey that's coming out through the thing here.
Mr. Chair, if I can just interrupt for a second.
Yes, sir.
When the applicant is done presenting those exhibits that he has presented to you, we will need a copy for our records.
Okay.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And if you can see the plot plan, it gets a lot on a nice piece of property. It's a quiet neighborhood. It looks nice. It's well drained. There's no wetlands on the property. The homes have adequate setbacks from adjacent properties, and a nice neighborhood. Mrs. Garrison, didn't you talk with the people across the street about?
Yes, Miss Peggy across the street said it's very quiet.
Could you get
No,
the microphone?
yeah, Miss Peggy across the street said that it's a nice, quiet neighborhood, and she would love to have us join her on the neighborhood.
She wouldn't be able to be here today,
Yeah.
but she wanted to let everybody know that she was in favor of it.
Yes.
The property going through it, concurrency indicates that the roads can handle this particular type of zoning. The city of Cocoa provides water service to it. It's in an older growth of Merritt Island, which has been well-served and well traveled. And you can see that an agricultural function isn't really demonstrated for this area. It'd be more likely on RU 211, and that's what, after consulting with the staff before we took the application, the staff said that they felt that RU 111 would be something we should ask for.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Well, that's good news. So seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, just one question for me.
Yes, sir.
I do see no deficiency in the level of service for transportation or schools or public safety, but I did have a question regarding utilities, being it is near Merritt Island. City water, you're planning on hooking up to city water?
Yeah, there's a magnet school, a elementary. There's also Jefferson Junior Senior High, which is not that far away, which is a school of choice.
And utilities? You're going to hook up to the city
Utilities.
water?
Yep, right up.
There is no sewer there. This is a septic system.
It's,
But other than that, it has every other utility that a person would want to have a home in.
Okay, if, maybe even the board can answer this, I did see that there was a gravity main there.
yes,
Can you provide a proper definition on the gravity main?
there's a gravity main.
That would be up to the utility provider to provide that service. If they decide to go to septic, they will have to get a septic permit from the health department, and the health department will determine whether whether sewer is available or not. If it's available based on their criteria, then they will make them hook up to sewer.
Sir,
But they will have to get a permit through the health department for a septic system.
thank you. No further questions, sir.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I thought I turned it off.
Yes, ma'am, Miss Liz.
So Mr. Campbell's pretty accurate about the change in this area. It was a lot of agricultural, and over time, they carved out residential areas, and a lot of these small AU lots are going to residential now, because it stays consistent with what the neighborhood became, not what the comp plan actually started out with. So I fully support the application.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the item.
And I'll second that.
A motion by Bruce, a second by Pete. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item H3.
H3, Scott Minnick requests a change of zoning classification from AU to SR. The zoning number is 21Z00026. Tax account number 3023195 and District 1.
And ma'am, you're the applicant?
I'm the agent. My name is Ann Nelson, 2959 Finsterwell Drive, Titusville, Florida, 32780.
Is Scott here?
No, I'm the agent for him.
Okay. All right, and what is he looking to do a little bit? Just a quick explanation.
I'm representing him. He wants to build a single-family home on that half-acre lot.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the representative?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
can I have the applicant's name again? We're just verifying the owner
Yes.
authorization.
My full name is Virginia Ann Nelson, but when I filled out the application, I might have put down just Ann Nelson.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's me.
Do you know about how big type of house he's wanting to put on this?
I don't. 1,400? 1,400 square foot. Under air.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I believe that the change is consistent and compatible and that we move that we recommend approval of this change.
Okay, we got a motion by Ron. We got a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item H4, please, sir.
H4 is Robert E. Araro and Jeremy Southern Son request a change of zoning classification from BU1 and AU to all AU. It's zoning action number 21Z00027 and tax account number 2001826 in District 1.
Okay, and sir, are you the applicant?
We are, yes.
Yes, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Robert Aurelio, 4740 US Highway 1 in MIMS, 32754.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do here.
We're just looking to rezone it back to AU1, or AU, I'm sorry. Originally, we have 7¼ acres roughly there, and 6¼ of them are AU1, and this 1 acre is zoned differently. But the BU one, we want to just make it all AU because we have plans to do like a wholesale nursery in the front, and we might eventually get some farm animals as well.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Sir, if you don't mind, if y'all could just have a seat off to the side. Ma'am, if you could come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Patricia M. Frank. I live at 3825 Arancha Road. My property borders on the north side of their property.
Okay.
So you're that piece of AU that's like the first lot if you were going west from US 1 on the left side?
That's correct.
And it's-
The convenience store is on the corner. That's on my property. And then I have the surrounding property around that store. My driveway comes out onto a rancher road.
It's like the U of.
Yeah, and then
circular.
the east side of my property comes out to US 1.
Okay.
The south side of my property joins the north side of theirs.
So you have it like an L shape, so you have frontage on US 1 and on Rancho?
Kinda.
Okay.
Yes,
All
I
right.
have property that I have that whole corner piece
Okay.
of property, including the convenience store.
Gotcha, thank you.
And you are opposed to this?
I have concerns, I have questions that are unanswered, and I have been there all my life. I grew up on the north side of a Rancher Road in the little wood house there, old wood, Florida wood house up on cinder blocks, which looks like nothing more than a shack now because part of it's deteriorated. My family has had that property on the south side, which was a wooded lot until I developed it in 1996.
And your concerns are?
My concerns are, when I spoke with, I believe, Mr. Arrerio's father, my neighbor Shirley Barker, who is just west of me, whose property also joins theirs, is on the
Right.
farther back. She couldn't be here today because she's been out of town, and she's recently widowed. She's like 68 years old. We have concerns because we were told back in March, April, that they were going to have a wedding venue, and that they would be putting up a wall because their business zoning next to my residential required them to put up a wall. Now, here's a loophole. They have intents of doing a business of some sort, and if it's turned to agricultural, change to agricultural zoning, the Florida statute has the word ceremonial in there, which would technically allow weddings and ceremonies to take place. Again, well, they're out in the country. Who would care? Loud music, alcohol, possible drugs, no fence, no border, no wall, and put my family, my grandchildren at risk to people who might tend to stray away.
Okay.
And that would be my concern. Shirley Barker asked me to mention, because she couldn't be here, she has a pond on the back of her property, again, with no fence. People tend to wander away from a party, go to a car, smoke a little marijuana, whatever, wander off into the woods, fall into her pond. She don't want to be sued. We would like to have the fence or a wall built to protect our families and our safety. At the front lot that is zoned business was that because the previous owners, Frank Bolduc, they had the motorcycle shop, which the son, Francis, runs now. Before it was the motorcycle shop, it was a bar. And we've already been through the problems of loud music, fights, cops called regularly, and we don't want no problems.
Okay.
That's our concern. If they want to do that, fine. Put up a wall, put up a fence, like you originally told us that you would,
Okay.
to protect. Please don't put my kids, my family, my grandkids at risk of somebody under some sort of influence. Hey, I'm all for, hey, if you want to have a wedding or reception, go for it. But Frank, he built right up next to the property line within 3 feet of my property line, they have a building. Basically, you can't walk around their building without stepping on my property, and I don't know how that was allowed.
You'll get your chance, sir. Just hold on.
Okay, we might need to take another look at a survey, having a survey done to the exact property line, because Frank Bolduc, there was an old barbed wire fence. He dropped it, and it seemed to disappear, okay? And there was a old tractor trailer that he used for storage for his motorcycles, for the motorcycle shop, and it was up front. It has been moved, but their buildings that were there before they bought into this property, and I'm not sure how close to a property line you can actually build and put a building. That might need to be looked at as well.
Well,
Because
they'll
where
look at
they
all that during permitting, everything. They have to meet certain setbacks, everything.
Okay, because where their pavilion is and things would take place, probably 100, 200 feet from my house. So that's my concern. I'm the closest neighbor,
Okay.
okay?
All right. Well, thank
So-
you.
And that property's been in the family name since 1949, and we really don't want any more problems. So put up a wall, put up a fence is my only request.
Okay, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Anybody else would like to speak for or against this item in the audience? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. We got any? Yeah. Y'all want to come back up to the podium there and you hear her concerns, a wall, a fence, or something? Are you opposed to any of that?
No, we fully want to put up a fence, actually, because it's kind of rough in that area. Like, her property is just overgrown with vines and poison ivy and stuff, kind of just keeps creeping our way, so I want to clear that whole line and put up a fence anyways. But we don't have any buildings within 3 feet of her property line. We just had a meeting like a few weeks ago, which we were approved for, so I think we're like 14 feet or 12 feet.
Okay, so with this request, would you be opposed to like a BDP to put the wall up, a binding development plan?
To go to agricultural?
Yes.
A fence? I don't know about I wouldn't put a concrete wall up because that's ugly, but I'll put a vinyl fence.
All right. Anybody from the board have any questions for him?
Mr. Chair, if I can just interject for a second. If the board decides to go with a fence or wall, I would just ask that you be specific on what you're requesting that. The
Right.
height, where it's located from where to where, because later on, when we get these, stipulations, we need to be able to enforce those. Whether it's a vinyl fence, what the make is and so forth.
There's actually already a fence separating myself from the neighbor she's speaking of, so I don't know what she's talking about there.
I didn't see that.
She said it does not cover the whole length of.
Ma'am, you had your chance there. Hold on now. Let's give them a chance to respond.
I'm sure the
Mr.
majority of
Chairman?
it.
Mr. Chairman, are you planning on having wedding venue there?
Not currently. We don't have any current plans for that.
If there were to be a wedding venue, I noticed there seem to be a couple of buildings on that property
Correct.
that are, I don't know how old they are and how useful they are. Could they be used, or would they have to be refurbished in order to be used as something like a wedding venue?
They're not. I live in one. The other's like a garage. The other's like a laundry room. So they're not.
One's a house then?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
That's where I live.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Liz.
So you said earlier you're going to do farm animals and some kind of a
Wholesale nursery.
wholesale
plants.
nursery. So you don't have any plans for any agritourism at this time for
No,
your
not at this
property?
time.
So would you be amenable to taking agritourism off the table and just do bona fide agriculture. And if you ever did want to do what's involved with agritourism, you can always come back to this board and the county commission to request that.
No, I wouldn't want to agree to that. I don't want to be singled out. I just want to go back to what the original land use was intended for, which was AU, which it used to be.
Because I think for me, the AU is compatible. The agritourism is not, considering the surrounding land uses and properties. So I'm inclined not to support it, especially since you're not having any plans to do it at this time. And when you do, if you come back, then gives that neighborhood the opportunity to talk about it. So I'm just one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Mr. Pete?
also wanted to look at, how long have you guys owned the property?
Going on 3 years, January.
3 years? Because I do see a couple things here between 2019 and 20. You guys, I'm assuming it was you, dug a pond that was non-conforming?
Correct. Yeah, well, we didn't really dig a pond. It was just we moved a little bit of dirt. It was a holding water spot. So we started kind of shaping a pond, but it was only like a foot deep.
And then also discovery of unpermitted land clearing activities that may have potential wetland impacts.
No, we were cleared on all that.
And I also see that you have some scrub jay occupancy on your property as well.
That's incorrect. It was part of the scrub jay area, but they didn't find any scrub jays.
And you're also within some of your properties within the Indian River septic overlay map.
Not sure about that one.
Okay. I'm kind of feeling what my colleague over here, Liz, is feeling. If you restrict the ag tourism, I'll be happy to support it, and you can always come back and apply for it again. But I'm with Liz right now.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, question for staff. If they were to decide they wanted to do a wedding venue, is that something that would be permitted in the AU?
Yes, the agritourism umbrella is very broad from the state, and that is the concern, is that when you allow that AU zoning, that is a use that could happen within that zoning district.
As a follow-up question to that, Mr. Ball, does the code address certain requirements? If that's what they propose, they'd have to go through a site plan review and they'd have to meet all of the county's codes for that?
They do.
Okay. Yeah, this is agricultural to the north, agricultural to the south. They all have the right to do whatever agricultural allows, and they're downzoning from BU1 to agricultural. I don't see the problem here, but that's just me. So we could say he can't do it, but then his neighbor to the north and south could do it. Correct. So to separate ag from ag, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. I would make the motion that we approve it just the way it's proposed.
Okay, we have a motion from Bruce, a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have two opposed, Pete and Liz. So that motion passed.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, we're not saying that. You might, depend on what you do, it's going to be up to the code. But that's not a decision for this board.
This goes to the county commission, and they'll be addressing this on November 4th. And so it'll go from there.
So then we need to show up again on November 4th?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, if I could just expand on that a little bit for the folks that are out in the audience. This board here only provides a recommendation. This is not the final approval or denial of an application.
Right.
The next meeting will be at the Board of County Commissioners, where they have the ultimate say of whether they're going to approve or deny an application, or add any other stipulations in the BDP, whether it's a wall or no agritourism uses, or anything else that they deem necessary to approve an application.
Mr. Chair, can I ask staff a question?
Yes,
about
ma'am.
the agritourism? Is there a way to, like you have ag light and you have agricultural, which is more intense use. Is there a way to make a zoning classification that includes agritourism maybe as a conditional use? So that it doesn't just get looped into, a typical AU is farm, you know, animals, things in that nature. This is commercial agritourism. It's a commercial introduction into an AU community. So is there a way to?
I think you're looking at two different scenarios. Number one is the way that the state defines agritourism and the uses, and how our zoning code addresses ag uses. Now, we do have a different AUL zoning classification versus AU, and you are correct that the AUL does not allow the commercial sale of products, where the AU zoning allows for the full-blown uses. I mean, that would have to be board directed for us to look at the code to see if there's anything that we could do as far as tightening our requirements. And Ted's in the audience, he can, add more insight than I can.
But it just says as a follow-up, because Bruce is right. That gives all the other AU in that area the opportunity to do the agritourism. So, but if you made a condition on a conditional use permit, and they met all the conditions, the size of the lot, the residential neighborhoods, I'm just saying this is going away, so.
Yeah, so I think if we were to look at doing a conditional use permit, that would be something we'd probably have to check with the attorney's office to address. But my understanding, what becomes difficult with the agritourism is it's just not AU zoning, and Alex will be happy to jump in and put me back on course if I get too far off here. There's several things that they have to have. They got to be a bona fide farm. They got to have the agro exemption from the property appraiser's office, and then they got to have, the use occurring at that site, which makes it difficult because once they get those things, then they're exempt from any local enforcement that we have whatsoever. So code enforcement is really just ineffective. And we do have a couple of properties here in the county where they do agritourism uses, and they can be quite a nuisance to the neighbors, from the different venues. It's not so bad. And some of them where they have like a wedding venue where it's, maybe during the day or it ends at a decent hour. But when you have things like concerts and stuff like that can occur on those properties, they can go to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's nothing that we can do whatsoever. And I don't know, Alex, if you have anything to add.
No, I think
that.
Tad and Jeff really nailed it. There's essentially two different parallel restrictions or regulations in place. You have the local application of the planning and zoning regs, and then you also have the state regulations which exempt those if the property appraiser determines that it's an agritourism or a bona fide ag. So it really hinges on what the property appraiser wants to do based on what they see on the inspection. If they determine that it's ag classified, then our regulations don't necessarily apply.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Just going back to the conditional use permit, is there a way we can, and just try to reclassify the question, is there a way we can treat ag tourism how we treat like a liquor license, for example? I remember liquor licenses come up here for CUPs quite regularly.
We could, if the board directed us to open up our zoning code to look at requiring a conditional use for certain uses. However, it couldn't be based on agritourism definition. So like for AU zoning, if we put in our zoning code that a wedding venue or wedding ceremony requires a conditional use, we could do that. But we call it a wedding venue, and then someone else says, well, I'm not a wedding venue, I'm a wedding pavilion, and I'm not subject to that. So
Could you let us report back to this board on that matter for the next meeting? I think we need to have some time to talk to the attorney's office, because Alex mentioned, there's those different layers here that come into play. And my concern would be is I think in the statute it says that we cannot pass an ordinance that would limit the use of agricultural property through the agritourism. So
It's a fine line.
It's a very fine line, and it's a very complicated type thing, and I'd hate to shoot from the hip here today and give you all an answer that may not be necessarily lined up with what we can do. So let us look at that, and we can come back to you all at maybe the LPA meeting later this month, and we can have an answer for you, if that works.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for indulging me.
All right, so seeing and hearing that, meeting adjourned. Thank you again, Miss Liz, for joining the board.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.